listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM, and we are going to be talking about some interesting miraculous fruits here in Lindsay's story. Stay tuned. We have a great show ahead of us. We got a message here from Kevin, and Kevin said in ancient times, purple dye came from sea snails in the that the Syrophoenicians collected and traded with the Middle East. This is the Murex snails. They're very tiny little snails. Yeah. And actually you need to crush like, I think, 1,000 of these snails to get like one drop of purple dye. That's why it was so expensive. It is very expensive to this day. Yeah. They have a place in Israel, in Galilee, where they have like this very authentic first century village where people dress and they eat and they use tools exactly like the ones used back in the days. I haven't been there, but I have seen many documentaries of people visiting it. And one of the ladies there whose job is to make clothes, she explains all of that, and she has some of that purple extracted still through these very ancient methods.
Wow.
Now I was having a look here. Where did the Roman guards get their purple robe from?
Did you get an answer for that?
Look, there's no direct answer. There's some theories. Some of the theories that they would probably have a kind of a beaten down old one that they get hold of, and apparently it was a custom among the Roman soldiers to mock the prisoners that were going to die, particularly the ones who were aspiring to become rebels.
Sure.
And they would treat them as kings and so on. So they would have that as part of their torture kit, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
And they used that one on
So they had
Jesus.
that in the back of the costume closet?
Yeah.
And they pulled it out for special occasions like this.
That's right. So it would be like an old, beaten down one. Some people say that the way that you can interpret is either purple or scarlet robe. Scarlet would be a little bit less, because at least during these times, like pure purple robes, it was reserved for the kings to wear. But at the same time, what happens when these robes get really old and raggy and they have to go somewhere.
Sure.
What the irony of all of that is that they were mocking Jesus, but they didn't realize, but they were actually worshiping Jesus without even knowing. The irony was that they were treating Jesus as he actually deserves, as a king, even though they thought in their minds that they were mocking.
Yeah, fascinating.
Thank you, Kevin, for your message. All right, Lindsay, let's get into a quiz question first, and then we get into your story. So, Tish.
Yeah. Our next quiz question is, what was the name of the first queen before Esther? What was the name of the first queen before Esther?
I think I know this one. Do you know this one, Lindsay?
I know it. It's just not coming immediately to mind. That's the problem.
If you know 0491 064 669, what was the name of the first queen before Esther? If you need a clue, we have one correct answer here, two correct answers here. If you also know, or if you might need a hand, try having a look in Esther 1 verse 9. 0491 064 669. What was the name of the first queen before Esther?
There's a bit of an irony in that story, but we will talk more about it later when we talk about the answer to the quiz question. Thank you very much, Tish. So just one more time, what's the number to text and what's the question?
The question one last time is, what was the name of the first queen before Esther? And our number to text that in is 0491 064 669.
Okay. All right, Lindsay, tell us about miracle fruits.
This is a miracle berry, which is, I guess, a type of fruit. So, do you know anyone who's ever experienced cancer and gone through chemotherapy before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I don't think I know anyone who's gone through chemotherapy. Well, actually, no, I did know somebody's husband, but he's passed away since. He managed to have like quite an extended life after the expected life expectancy that they gave him. I haven't had conversations with him about his experience, but apparently when a person goes through chemotherapy, and let me know if this sounds correct to you, apparently the chemotherapy can affect the way that they taste food.
I didn't know that. Look, I know that chemotherapy can have a lot of side effects.
Yeah.
And there's chemos and chemos as well.
There's different types.
From what I know, there's some chemos that are very targeted but there are some chemos that are like more broad spectrum and depends on the kinds of cancers. And these ones that are more broad spectrum tend to have more collateral effects. But I did not know that loss of taste was one of them.
Yeah, well,
you know what? Maybe I did. I mean, I'm now thinking here about a friend of mine. I think she mentioned something.
So from what I understand from what I'm reading in this article, it's not necessarily a loss of taste, or maybe it could be for some people, but instead the taste buds kind of make the taste of food more like rotten or metallic flavored.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just really unpleasant. So whatever the chemicals are doing, they're changing the flavor profile of the food when it hits their tongue. And that makes it very unpleasant to eat. And so a person going through chemo might be less inclined to eat the food that they need to get the nutrients
it's
to help.
Tasting like metal.
Because it tastes gross and they're like, ugh, like I don't want to be eating. My subconscious body is like, I don't want that gross, rotten food in my body, so I'm just going to avoid eating altogether. And so it can really affect a person's ability to gain nutrients in order to fight the disease on their own, plus the medical support.
Of course, you need to be well nourished.
You need to be well nourished. And so there is a miracle berry, not belly, it goes in your belly. The miracle berry is a red berry native to Africa, and they're now growing it in Florida in the US. And it's helping them to regain the ability to enjoy the food thanks to the berry's properties, which bear a miracle moniker. So it is called the scientific name for this berry is Syncephalum dulcificum. And the dulcificum part is referring to its unique ability to turn sour foods sweet.
I know this berry.
You know this berry?
I actually have a friend. He lives in Nambucca.
Nambucca?
Yeah, and he planted a tree of this miracle berry.
So it's in Australia?
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Definitely not. He doesn't have a commercial. I think he has like one tree in his backyard.
Well, he's gonna.
But you can get it. You can get it.
Now.
It's available. Look, one of the
why
things.
Why did he plant it in his backyard?
Look,
for the miracle, or because he just likes the berry?
Yeah, because he want to try. So one of the things that I haven't tested it yet. When I visited him, there was no berries in that tree.
Okay.
But he said that it's really amazing. Like you can basically, after you eat that berry, you can like bite a, let's say an onion.
Yeah.
And it will just taste sweet.
Yeah. Well, apparently if you bite a lemon, it will taste like an orange after you eat this berry.
So it was so I'm super keen. So shout out to my friend, Tim, who has the miracle berry in his backyard. Now, I did not know that would help patients, that are going through chemotherapy. Yeah.
So apparently the effects of after you eat this berry, it changes. So let me read out the science that goes into this. So there's the plant's fruit has a glycoprotein that's literally called miraculin. So miracle.
Miraculin. Wow.
Yeah. And what it does is this compound at low pH, it binds the proteins and becomes able to activate the sweet receptors, resulting in the immediate perception of a sweet taste.
Wow, okay.
Okay, so I don't know how all of that works, but apparently it does this thing. It binds the receptors. It helps you taste sweet instead of sour or whatever other unpleasant flavor. And it not only does this just for like a second, it does this for like about 30 or 40 minutes, which is long enough to enjoy a meal.
Yeah, but then, okay, so the meal wouldn't taste metallic anymore, but are you saying that it's going to be tasting sweet?
Well,
everything that you eat is going to be like a dessert?
I don't know exactly how it works, but apparently it is considered more pleasant to eat with this berry at the beginning of your meal than eating without it.
Okay.
So...
Wow.
So this is a really great option for people who are struggling, who are going through chemo, who are struggling with their taste of food. They can get a hold of this plant. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it apparently in Nambucca or different places. You can grow it in your backyard. Maybe we can get
from his backyard.
Yeah, see if he can give some seeds away or something. Yeah. I don't know, but it's worth a try.
Yes, I'd love to plant one of that. I'm wondering if it would grow in my backyard.
Apparently it needs hot and humid, like tropical sorts of environments. Where is Nambucca? Is that north coast somewhere from here, or?
Yeah, like next to Kempsey, kind of like in the...
Okay, like near Coffs Harbour sort of way?
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, and I know that Coffs Harbour area, it's very suitable for all kinds of tropical fruits.
Yeah, it
Because,
does have a tropical vibe.
One of my
there.
friends has an orchard with over 80 different types
Oh,
of
wow.
fruit trees.
Okay.
And we're talking about like really, really tropical fruit trees, including things like jackfruit.
Yeah,
which is one of
okay.
my personal favorites.
Wow.
Yep.
Rightio. Yeah, okay, so we can grow this here in North New South Wales and certainly further north up the coast in Queensland, definitely. If you are struggling with this, you know what this reminds me of? There's a verse in the Bible that says that God made herbs for the service of man. God thought of everything, and he has created so many amazing different plants that are so good for so many different things, medically, nutritionally, so many different things. And this is just one of those miraculous things that God has placed in, knowing in advance that this is going to really uplift somebody's experience and quality of life when they're going through some difficult
Amazing. Look,
times.
the
How good
creativity
is
of God is like really knows no limits.
Yeah.
It is really amazing. And
He even
sometimes
cares
we discover
about-
new types of fruits. Imagine in heaven being able to experience different kinds of fruit as well
Yeah.
throughout eternity.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be one of my favorite things. Gotta be.
I just love that he loves us so much. He even cares about our experience of the flavor of food when we're unwell.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because a lot of animals, I don't think that they can taste a lot of food. I mean, dogs,
Okay.
they're definitely not very picky with what they eat. At least not my dog.
I mean, they have a much greater sense of smell, which is going to impact their sense of
Yeah,
taste.
but then they eat imagine like vultures, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, but probably for them, rotten food tastes tasty.
Delightful.
But for us, it's actually quite amazing how God, when He created us, He not only created food for our nourishment,
Yeah, but our
also
enjoyment. Yeah.
which is quite amazing.
Yeah. Isn't he good?
Very good. Well, thanks for sharing that story, the miracle fruit. Let us know, friend, if you have any experience with miracle fruits or chemotherapy or loss of taste. I remember that when I caught COVID during the
Yeah.
COVID time, like one of the symptoms that I really found most annoying, I actually lost my sense of taste
Wow.
to a great degree for many weeks,
Wow.
over a month.
That's
And,
crazy.
Yeah, that was...
Well, if you ever catch COVID again, or maybe like a flu that's really bad and you don't want to eat your food, maybe just
Miracle
go to your
fruits?
friend Tim and say, "Can I have some of that
Yeah, you know what? I'll
miracle
do that
fruit
experiment.
and give it a try and report back?"
Maybe we'll help out.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And now it's time for our next quiz answer. Please, Tish.
Yes, the answer to that quiz answer, well, let's recap the question first, shall we? What was the name of the first queen before Esther? And that was Queen Vashti. That can be found in Esther 1:9.
Very good.
I actually met once a girl named Vashti.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's the only person that I've met in modern day times with that name. I think it's a beautiful name, by the way.
Actually, I know someone called Vashti. I've also met someone called
Oh,
Vashti.
really?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So a friend of mine, it's her sister. Yeah.
Okay, look, the thing about the story of Queen Vashti, basically the king was drunk, he's one of his parties, and he wanted to display her as a bit of a trophy. We even have that expression, I do not know if you have that in Brazil, you call it the trophy wife, meaning it's just a wife that it's very beautiful and you kind of want to display as a trophy.
Wait, did I hear that correctly? Did you say Vashti means trophy?
No.
No, wait, what did you say?
So she was being treated
She
like
was treated like a trophy.
trophy.
Okay,
Yes.
right.
And she said, no, I'm not. I'm not
Not
going
gonna
to
do that.
do that.
I'm not going
The
to
king
degrade
was-
myself in that way.
No. The king was irate and he said, okay, you're not going to be my wife anymore. And I'm going to raise a decree everywhere in the kingdom telling husbands that it's forbidden for wives to tell them what not to do and what not. But they ended up giving even more publicity to that matter by telling people what not to do. That was a bit of a funny, unexpected, I guess, element of that story.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have any text messages?
Yeah, it looks like we do. So we have Corel has texted in saying, "Good morning. Can you send me the name or the link of the miracle fruit? And Skafy, can you pray for me, please? I have stage 3 breast cancer. Praying and hoping in biopsy it's a false positive." We can absolutely pray for you, Corel.
Absolutely, Karel. Thank you so much for texting us. Thank you so much for listening. And look, we're really sorry that you are going through this cancer. God is with you. We're going to be praying that God will care for you. He will provide assistance to the people that are offering their support, their care for you, the medical professionals, and that He will give you His peace while you go through that process. But we're praying for your healing so that you can be good and cancer-free as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yes, that definitely our prayers will be with you. Karel, thank you so much for sending in, and we're going to find the link to that fruit, and we're going to send it your way.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, Lindsay, let's talk about some of the things that are happening, some sad stories and some war stories.
Yeah, tell me.
That's happening here that have been coming up. So, have you refueled your car?
I did
lately?
refuel my car 1 or 2 days ago.
And how was the experience?
It was unfortunately quite expensive. And
Yeah.
I was reminiscing to the days before COVID when the price was half as much as it currently is.
Yes. So look, I was yesterday. I have a diesel car.
Yeah.
And I took the car for to be refueled. And normally for $100, I would just fill in the entire car.
Yeah.
About 60 liters. This time, with the same $100, it was like 43 liters. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, wow, that was a big change.
Yep.
So what and that's because I probably went in the cheapest gas station in town.
Yeah, I went to the cheapest place too.
Yes. That being said, Iran has announced that we can actually expect $200 barrel. So he's saying that prices are going to double up because we broke the record or a recent record with when petrol barrel prices went above $100 per barrel, and Iran is threatening the world, saying, okay, you're thinking that $100 is expensive. Wait for us. You're going to be seeing petrol at $200 a barrel. So that's their threat. And in connection to that threat, there has been reports that Iran has started to lay on sea mines in the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh.
So there's at least a dozen sea mines that were there scattered. Now, a dozen sea mines may not seem much, but it's definitely putting in some fear, particularly on the navigators that go through that region. We spoke about how a lot of these ships, they were
sneaking across.
They're sneaking across.
Yeah.
They are turning off their GPS location devices and so on. They were just braving through. Yeah. The Strait of Hormuz is really, really narrow.
Yeah.
And now there are mines. There are reports of mines in there. Now, President Donald Trump said that their Air Force destroyed 16 mine deploying vessels.
Okay.
The problem with these with these sea mines is that you don't really need super big fancy vessels to deploy them, because these mines are relatively small enough that you can deploy them on like a speedboat.
Yeah.
I mean, you could not a whole bunch, but you can definitely deploy 3 or 4 on a speedboat.
Okay.
President Trump said to the Iranians, hey, with the mines that you have deployed, go there and take them away, or you're going to face even bigger military strikes. So he's threatened them. I don't know that at that stage the Iranians are, going to comply with that. That makes everything a bit more difficult, because to remove sea mines, it's quite the task. Actually, we have, even in Australia, we have some special forces units. Do not know if you've heard about them. They're called clearance divers.
Okay.
And it is a very difficult, very dangerous, high risk, time consuming, and dangerous activity.
Yeah.
So nobody wants that, because before we didn't know what exactly, how exactly would the Iranians hit, or go on with their threats of affecting the oil transport in the region. However, we also heard that overnight 3 ships have been hit in the Strait of Hormuz. We don't know details about how these big cargo ships have been hit. We don't know if they hit the landmines. Some people are saying that the Iranians are using naval drones to hit them. We don't know exactly, but the situation there is not getting better.
Yeah.
So we know there are some. France is sending some big destroyers to try to stabilize the region. Australia is sending some assets to the Middle East. They're sending the Wedge-tail surveillance aircraft, which is a really cool aircraft,
Yeah.
to help out with the surveillance of that area. But it is quite volatile. So much so that the International Energy Agency made a historic decision of that most countries will be using their oil reserves to try to calm down the current price situations.
Okay.
So some countries have more reserves than others.
Yeah.
Some countries have like years worth of reserve.
Sure.
I think that's the case with the United States, and imagine how much
Yeah.
oil they consume. In Australia, we have a kind of a bit of a meager reserve. I have about 1 month
Yeah.
worth of oil, so that
We're
can go.
already a week in.
Yes, sure. They can use that strategically to kind of make it stretch
Yeah.
and just try to contain prices. But the Reserve Bank of Australia is expected to increase and to hike interest rates, meaning everything's going to trying to calm down the inflation. Because we're seeing there's a likely surge in inflation for like to 5%. So
Right.
there's some really big economic consequences that. So that's one of the things that's happening at the moment in the Strait of Hormuz. The other interesting thing, though, or not interesting, but kind of tragic thing, is that at the beginning of the U.S.-Iran campaign, there was a missile strike that killed about over 170 children in a school in the district of Minab in Iran. Now, there's a lot of speculation about it. What has happened, we don't know. It's still being investigated. At first, one of the theories is that maybe Iran did them on themselves as a false flag attack. So it's an attack to cause outrage and so on. But it is known in history that sometimes certain kinds of regimes would do that to their own people and then
Yeah.
they blame others and say,
Yeah.
look what they're doing to our children and so on. However, according to a New York Times investigation, it looks like the debris of the missile that they have found are from a U.S. Tomahawk missile.
Okay.
And they're trying to investigate. And one of the things is that place where it's located, where there is a school being operated, it used to be a military base of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So it used to be a military base that they transformed into a school. And it looks like that the U.S. intelligence did not receive the memo that the military base has been transformed into a school. And in their records, they had it as a legitimate target, but they didn't know. So it looks like it's pointing towards it being a horrific accident.
Right.
And that school is located right next to a military base as well in Iran.
I mean, that's some very unfortunate placement of a school ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But look, it's very tragic through and through.
Wow.
We do not know what's going to happen, but it kept me thinking about in the Bible how there are these things called sins of ignorance.
Yeah.
And God takes into account, because there are
Yeah.
sins and there are sins, but God takes into account the intent as well.
Yeah.
And when we commit a sin and it's from genuine ignorance, God has a bit more lenience towards us in terms of we can ask for forgiveness. There's actually in Israel, during the sanctuary service, they had one sacrifice that they would do every morning and every evening, and that was to cover sins of ignorance. People that were committing sins that they didn't know.
Yeah.
But you know what? They are being covered. So when we don't know, when we've done something and we are not aware of it, God covers that. But when we discover, then we have to try to make reparations and amendments for those sins of ignorance. Have you made a sin? Have you committed a sin of ignorance before?
Oh, I'm pretty sure I would have by now, definitely.
Yeah. So that's absolutely happens with all of us. So we do not know what's going to happen from the U.S. perspective, but I know that from a spiritual perspective, we can cause damage out of ignorance, and if that's the case, God will forgive us, and we can make reparations afterward.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And now we are going to have an interview with Noah Rowett from the Voice of the Martyrs. He's going to be sharing with us a story of a friend of his that fled Iran because he was persecuted because of his Christian faith. Good morning to you, Noah. It's great to have you here.
Good morning, everyone.
Look, no, tell us a little bit about that friend of ours, of yours. So, what's his story like?
Well, his name is Ali, and his wife Rachel. They both suffered quite a lot. They now work for us, which is fantastic. But they had quite the journey, and I've learnt a lot about Iran through these guys. They've been in contact with Iran and the people of Iran for ever since, and they predicted this. I remember him coming to me last year, and I said, "Will you ever get back to Iran?" Because he was a refugee, he can't go back. But he said, "I think by next year I will." It's like
really?
he had this premonition, he had this vision, which was quite telling. And basically, their story is she was born a Christian, Rachel, but Ali was not. He was a Muslim, and because he was a Muslim, it was a problem. That they have a special law. If you convert, then you're like an apostate to them. They have their own word for that. And so the first time they encountered trouble was around 2005, and they were just in a Bible study. And then the police just, with automatic weapons, came into this prayer meeting. And they took all their details and then let them go. But then after that, they consistently harassed them, all just for being Christians. And yeah, the story went on. They ended up having to report to the police every month. It was just awful. And then poor Rachel, one day she went and reported to the police, and they took her down under the police station. And well, you know, it was an awful situation that she'll never forget, and it was very traumatizing for her. So, but they kept on living their life. She never returned to the police station, and eventually they realized they had to get out of there. They found a photo of Ali in his house, and it was him being baptized. They didn't know what it meant, but he boldly said, "I was baptized, and that's my photo." And they were very angry, and eventually they pretty much had to flee. They were taking on odd jobs. So remember, this is almost 20 years ago, so things haven't changed a lot in Iran.
Wow.
And they had to take odd jobs, and one day they were told, "You got to get out of here, and you got to get out of here now." And so they ended up just crossing the border, like so many did, having like most people around the world have to do to get out of these places. They have to bribe someone to get across the border. They ended up in Turkey in a refugee camp. And they functioned very well there, and then ended up in Australia. So, and we're very lucky to have them work for us.
Wow, that is an amazing story, because look, it's true. We sometimes have no idea of the imposition of the Sharia laws in Iran, and the loss of liberties that people have compared to most countries in the West. For example, women not being allowed to walk in the street without the permission of their husband, or with sometimes the company of a male person of their family. Or as you mentioned, to be converted to Christianity means death sentence. It's very shocking. So
Yep.
what other stories have you received or being able to witness or seen coming from Iran? Because it is also true that Iran, even though it's one of the most repressive countries in the world towards Christians, it's also one of the countries where the church has been growing the quickest and the fastest, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, because you guys have been on top of it, and a lot of Australian Christians who follow our work and the work of others have seen this coming, because it's a really great example of what happens when the Word of God persists and people are courageous. And just backtracking a little bit, the thing with Iran, and one thing I've learned from speaking to Iranian people, they see themselves as Persian people. And Persian people were very free. They felt that they were very patriotic, I guess you'd say. And they don't consider themselves Arabic. They don't consider themselves Muslim. And they don't like the fact that a regime just came in and said, well, a lot of you are Muslim, so we're going to be a Muslim nation. And they became the first kind of Islamic law nation, and they did not like that. They said, we are Persians and we want to rule ourselves. So they've been under incredible repression. They're probably the nicest people in the world when they do studies of these things. They are probably the most friendly and nicest people in the world. So it's actually quite bizarre that they were under this very oppressive regime for so long. And as you've seen in recent months, they've risen up by the many tens and hundreds of thousands saying, we are Persians, we don't want this anymore, we want out. A lot of that has been spurred on by the Christian movement. What we've said about Christians in Iran over the last 20 years, because they're seeking answers away from Islam, many have turned to Christianity, many. And they will, and they're very strong people and strong-willed. And once you get to about 10% of people going to house churches and becoming Christians or seeking Christianity in a country, it's almost becomes a dam that you can't stop bursting. I know 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but that is like a critical number, and Iran has certainly come to that point. And we've been watching it and expecting this to happen. I know, obviously, we didn't see what happened with the bombing and all this sort of stuff happening, coming, but we did see regime change of some sort potentially happening, and freedom for Christians.
Their situation was really becoming unattainable there, wasn't it, for a while? But I love how you said, I didn't know that once you reach this 10%, it's almost like a critical mass number. And I would say 10%, one thing is 10% in a country that are nominal Christians. Another thing is 10% that are willing to risk their lives to carry the name of Jesus, because this is a completely different profile of faith, isn't it?
Absolutely. It so is. And there are other countries who are on that sort of verge at the moment. I mean, places like China. As massive as China is, there's a massive movement, and the government there are struggling to hold back the tide because they know it's getting too big to stop. And, you know, who knows what will happen in China? The same thing happened in South Korea, but that was a free country. But South Korea was always the oppressed as far as the economy. North Korea actually had the better economy. People don't realize this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, until about the 60s. But what happened was they the South Koreans embraced an American kind of government, which include embracing a lot of Christianity. And it came in, and once it reached 10%, same thing happened. Suddenly the economy grew, people were free, the church grew, and it exploded and became the free country that it is today. So it's an interesting figure, and I think it's something that Christians can take heart, because if we do enough, we pray enough, and obviously help, and with resources and whatever way we can to get those numbers up to 10%. It's amazing the work of God and what will happen in those nations. And, Somalia is a good example. It's at almost 0%. But there is now a YouTube channel, and there's some great people. We can talk about that someday. And there's a small uprising, and it's quite amazing. But wouldn't be at 1% yet, but we're praying that will just explode and change everything there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I have seen... for example, there has been, right prior to the fall of the Wall of Berlin, there had been a revival as well in Europe, particularly among Christian churches where they were praying for that.
Yes.
And after they started praying, I think in 6 to 9 months, we have probably one of the greatest geopolitical events that of the past 100 years. So it's really quite amazing when you see when Christians are united in prayer and they're praying for their nation, and they're praying that the doors for the gospel will be open. It's quite incredible the things that can actually happen as a result.
Your prayers, and everyone who listens to this station, and everyone who subscribes to our magazine and uses that as prayer points and our app, it works. It's God uses those prayers. He God is sovereign, and He does His thing. But the prayers of His people are being heard. They do make a huge difference, guys. Huge.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about this, Noah, because sometimes some people can grow weary of praying. Look, we're praying, but we're not seeing anything happen. We kind of have that expectation that when you pray, things will happen, boom, immediately, tomorrow. What would you say to a person that is, let's say, was praying for Iran and they were not seeing anything happening before all started to change? And what would you tell them in terms of, should they grow weary of prayer? Should they just give up on it?
Well, of course, no. And the fact is, these people, they know. It's funny when you talk to them, it's quite amazing. Again, you're dealing with people from different cultures, different nations. Yeah. They know that when the West is praying for them, they know when they're being heard. And that's another thing that's important for the work we do, and in partnership with you guys. It allows them to hear. A lot of them feel very alone. A lot of them, especially in remote parts of China and other parts of Asia and Africa, they feel very alone. But once the prayers are out, once they hear that, oh no, we're praying for you, we're there with you, we're partnering with you, it gives them tremendous courage. And they'll often say, we know that they were praying for us. That a slightly different topic, but we had our ambassador, Peter Yasik. We talked about him, I think, 2 or 3 episodes ago. He knew that at 9 o'clock every night in Sudan, where he was being imprisoned, that there was a prayer. He knew there was a peace that came over him in the prison cell. He was with all these ISIS people, and he's a Westerner, so, he's probably more cynical than others. But, he just knew, and he felt the prayers of the people who were praying for him back in the Czech Republic. They had a whole army of people praying, and it was in his spirit. So it is not wasted.
Absolutely. Look, thank you so much for raising that up. I've been in situations where I needed prayers for making really big decisions, even in terms of persecution, my own family, back when I decided to become a Christian myself in Brazil. And I remember one pastor coming and said, look, Joseph, we heard your story. We heard what you're going through. And we just wanted to let you know that we are constantly praying for you. And I remember receiving such an injection of strength. And I really felt seen by God at that time. So I can only imagine how our brothers and sisters will be experiencing the same thing when we say, look, we are actually praying for you. We sometimes we have no idea of how much that actually means.
They talk about people like angels. Again, we live in a cynical society in the West, but they talk about, wow, this guy just was there and he protected me, and that's because of the prayers of the people are putting safeguards in front of these people. We just don't know how God is going to work and protect, because if a church is going to grow, there needs safety. Otherwise they need people in their country sharing the gospel. And it's amazing when you listen to all their stories, the things they get away with is just phenomenal. We hear about the persecuted and some of the trials, obviously. But there's plenty there that are also persecuted, but they escape somehow. And you can't not think that not only is God looking over, his angels are looking after them, but also we are, our prayers are being heard, and it's all one big Christian family.
Noah, tell me a little bit about the app, because I know that the Voice of the Martyrs app can really help to have that conversation starters. Or, for example, one of the things that people have been doing is just before their dinner at their table with their spouses, with their family, their children, they read some of that material and they pray for the persecuted church. Can you tell us a little bit more about how can we use the Voice of the Martyrs app?
Yes, the Voice of the Martyrs app is really handy, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's just been overhauled. It's amazing. You just go to Voice of the Martyrs Australia on Google Play or iTunes, and the front page says it all, that we have various resources, like we have a daily prayer notification for a nation. Now, what I do, sometimes, we're all really busy, but I see that notification, and even the headline says, pray for those in Saudi Arabia. And even if I'm in the middle of praying or it's one of those busy days, I'll do at least 10 seconds. I think I can do 10 seconds for those Christians in Saudi Arabia. It's a great little reminder for me. And then you've got the Frontline Report. It used to be called Vomos Radio. We call it the Frontline Report. This is a weekly report of what's happening on the front lines. There's plenty of news stories on there. It's great to know what is happening today with our brothers and sisters. Being united with them is a wonderful thing. And look, basically, we are called, Scripture commands us to remember the persecuted. So Voice of the Martyrs, through the app and other things, are bringing their stories to light and equipping the church to stand with those people. And also, there's even a Bible study called Extreme Devotion on our app. If you're having trouble, if you haven't got the right Bible study, you're looking for a new one, this is a great one. It's a little on the heavy side, not theologically, but some of the stories are pretty tough, but it just gives us wonderful perspective, especially if the Western world is kind of overwhelming you. This is a great way to get that perspective.
Amazing. What a shower of blessings coming from just being able to connect with our persecuted brothers and sisters. Noah, thank you so much for your ministry, vom.com.au.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.